everyone, in today's video we're gonna be rating all my NATASHA DENONA mini palettes. I'm going to talk about why they're my favorites and also why they're not that good. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's start on a positive note. Let's start from the ones that I really like and then going downhill. So let's start with these two. I couldn't choose my number one, so I'm going to talk about both of them. My number ones are the Glam palette and the Bronze palette. So let's start talking about the Bronze palette. As you can see, it's a beautiful palette. I love the packaging, by the way, of all of the minis. They have a very unique packaging to differentiate them from the big ones, which are the original palettes from NATASHA DENONA. And you can see here the color story. You can see how we have different shades of brown to basically do many looks with it. We have shimmers, we have matte formulas, and NATASHA DENONA's famous formula that's kind of a matte with a velvety finish that feels like it's a cream formula. And what I love about it is that it's a very warm palette, which is very nice for all of the skin tones that have that warm undertone. Like for example, myself, or if you have darker skin tones, this palette is going to look amazing on my dark skin girls. But the only thing that I don't really see this palette that can be a good fit for fair skin people is because it doesn't have like a lot of shades that you can use as transition or for a look that is going to look natural on you. So if you have a very light skin, this palette is not gonna be the best for you. But this one is a very nice palette to have for those everyday looks. Or if you're a person that doesn't really use a lot of color, the Bronze palette is an amazing palette to have because you have a lot of ranges of brown that you can do different type of looks with it. The Glam palette, which is my another number one palette, this palette is going to be a beautiful palette for my light skin girls, my fair skin girls and guys. In here you can see that you have a lot of cool tones, which is very nice for everyday looks too. You have browns, you have champagne colors, you have a couple of grays to do maybe a smoky eye, you have shimmers, you have the same like creamy formula that NATASHA DENONA is known for, and you have the high shine shimmers that she also creates, which are also part of the Bronze palette. For example, this one here is a really high shine shimmer, so you can use that one in the inner corner, or you can use that one if you do a halo eye that's going to be a shimmer that is going to look beautiful like in the center of the halo eye. So this one has the same formulas, and what I love about this palette is that also it's very versatile. You can use it for day and night looks, you can use it for natural casual type of looks, or you can do weddings, events, or anything with this palette. So these two palettes, the Bronze and the Glam, I will say they're very complementary to each other. So if you have the both of them, you're gonna have a very good range of colors for you to go from night to day or day to night very easily. So I really recommend if you are a mid-tone kind of girl like I am, like I'm not either in the fair family, but I'm not into the very dark skin tone family. The two of them can work perfectly for me because I have a lot of colors that I can play with and do different looks with them. Okay, on second place, I have the Sunrise palette. You can see here how well loved it is. You can see the packaging is horrendous. But this was actually the very first, or it was the first mini palette that she created, and I fell in love with it. I remember I was using it almost every day. It has a lot of tones and colors that I really enjoy. It's a pretty colorful but warm type of palette. You can see it ranges from a very nice oranges and cream color, like pastel orange colors. And then you have a couple of yellows, and you have here your purples and dark wine colors. You have the same formulas here, the matte, the shimmers, and all that. And what I love about this palette is that you can create a lot of looks with it, especially for summer. You have those yellows and orange tones that you can do those type of sunset vibes type of looks. I really love and enjoy this palette a lot, like you can see here. And I do recommend it. If you don't have the sunset one, you can get the sunrise, and you're gonna have the same color story that she did with that other palette. You have it here, and it's amazing. I just love it. I just love how colorful and fun this palette is. On third place, I have the retro palette. This palette, actually, she released it, I think, at the end of the year last year. And it was a very nice palette to have for that time of the year. This palette has an amazing range of purples and wine colors. It's the perfect palette for Christmas time, for the winter time, where you actually use those type of looks for holidays and stuff like that you play with your reds, with your wines. This is a perfect palette for that time of the year. So I think it was actually a pretty good call from the brand to create a palette with this story, this color story. And what I love about this color story is this pretty consistent. You can see on the sunrise palette, which is this one, that you have like yellows, purples, oranges. You have like a bunch of colors that, yes, are a lot of colors that you see on a sunrise. But in here, the story is only like in the pinks and in the purples, and that's it. You're not gonna have anything that distracts from this story, which is something that I find it very interesting in NATASHA DENONA. She usually creates palettes that doesn't really have a consistent color story. And this one is pretty consistent, so I really love that. I love that it has also warm and cool tones on it. It's going to be friendly for a lot of a huge range of skin tones. And I really love the quality of NATASHA DENONA's palettes are amazing anyways. So I really love mainly the color story. I thought that the color story was so consistent and so good that I really think that this is a palette that is a must-have if you don't have something like this in your collection. So my fourth place is the Sendo palette. The Sendo palette, for me, it is a palette that, yes, if you don't have something like this in your collection, which probably you will have, because it's a palette that is pretty neutral. It doesn't have nothing apart from the fact that it has these 5 greens, but that's it. The rest of the palette is a pretty neutral palette for every day. You have only like those pop of colors there that probably will give you more of a way to create something else with it apart from a neutral look. I don't think it's a palette that is a must-have. I have it because I am a fan of the brand. I love NATASHA DENONA. I really love her formulation and the quality of her palette. So for me, it's like collecting her stuff, and that's why I have it. But I didn't buy it at the moment when she released it. I think I bought it together with the retro palette. So imagine this one came out like I think 2 years ago. So I didn't think that it's a palette that you have to have unless you don't have something like this in your collection. But it's a pretty nice palette, like the consistency with the qualities there. You have your shimmers and you have all of the formulas that I mentioned before, like the mattes and the creamy formula that I mentioned before. And something that I do like that I didn't have the opportunity to try because I don't own the Metro palette, which is the Metropolis palette, which is one of my favorite palettes that she has released, but I haven't bought it yet, that I could play with these shades, these tones, which the Metropolis palette has that kind of color story, like in the greens and the blues and all that. So I really wanted to play with those tones to see how potent they are and how well they will blend, and they're beautiful. They blend very well and they perform super nice. So the Sendo palette, I would recommend it only if you don't have something like that in your collection. But I feel like the Sendo palette is that palette that has a little bit of the other palettes. So it's not really a consistent color story that you have to have. In fifth place, I have the Love palette. The Love palette was a palette that I was actually very excited to get, but then it was underwhelming for me when I got it in person. When I saw it on all of the social media posts, I saw the color story, and the color story is beautiful, don't get me wrong. It's a gorgeous palette. It goes with the theme because this was released on Valentine's Day. I think it was in 2020 or 2019. And it was a very spot on type of palette for Valentine's. Like it has your pinks, it has these red tones here, it has your shimmers, and these purple shades in here like to play with other type of combinations with the reds. But I thought that, for example, these tones here would be like more exciting. When I got them, I thought they were a little bit dull. So I was like, I was expecting them to be a little bit more shimmery or more like exciting, but it wasn't that exciting when I got it in person. And it's a palette very difficult to play because the color story is actually a difficult color story. If you don't like color, and if you don't play with color too much, then this is a color story that is not gonna be helpful for you because you're not gonna be able to create a lot of looks with it. You're gonna be stuck in the same look because you probably are afraid of playing with any other combination. So this is a difficult palette to have by itself. I think this palette would be amazing if you have maybe the Sendo palette and you have a lot of neutral tones here, and maybe you can use this palette to make or to have those pop of color moments that you probably use. But get it if you like the color story, if you think that you can do a lot of stuff with it. Otherwise, I would say pass. And my last one, the last place is going to be for the pastel palette. Even though I am very excited about this palette and I have done a couple of looks with it already, I was expecting for the colors to be a little bit more vibrant because yes, they are going to show on someone that is very, very fair. But for me or darker skin tones, we will have to use a primer that is a little bit into the white type of shade if you want the color to show. So that's the only thing that I didn't like about the palette. The color story is beautiful. I love this, like the lime color, the yellow. I love the purples. This blue purplish color is actually my favorite, and I feel like it is a beautiful palette. Like when you see it, you're like, oh my god, I'm so excited to use it. But the matte formulas, I think they could have been better in pigmentation, in the way they perform. I don't mind if they have a little bit of fallout or anything like that, because that is expected when you have a pastel color, because they tend to be chalky, because in order for them to look pastel, they have to put a lot of white into the formulation. So that white formula makes the eyeshadow chalky. So I don't care about that, because as long as the pigmentation is there, I don't care about fallout. But the pigment is not really there. But it's a really nice palette. I'm going to continue to use it anyways, because the shimmer formulas are pretty nice. So the shimmer formulas are those formulas that I probably will be using the most. The other ones, like the matte formulas, I will have to use like something else to make them pop a little bit more. That's why it's my last place, because it's not really a palette that is going to be for everyone. So this is a palette to recommend for fair to light skin tones to use with a primer that is your skin tone. But for my medium to dark skin tone girls and boys, I don't think this is going to work unless you put something in your lid that is going to make the eyeshadow pop. So for me, that's why it's the last place. And that's it, guys. I hope you liked the information that I gave you. And remember, this is my opinion. If you have a different opinion, respectfully leave your comment below and let me know which of the palettes that I just mentioned is your favorite, which one is the one that you say, oh my god, that's my holy grail, and which one is the one that you say, oh my god, next. And also, like this video if you like it, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We're almost there into the 1,000 subscribers, and I see you on the next one. Bye bye.